Are you talking to God, but you're just not hearing from Him right now? Well, there's a great warrior that had the same experience. We're going to talk about him, so don't go anywhere. So in Psalms chapter 28 and verse 1 says, "Unto thee I will cry, O Lord my rock. Be not silent unto me, lest if thou be silent unto me, I become like them that go down into the pit." And he went on to say in verse 2, "Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry unto thee, when I lift up my hands towards thy holy oracle." So even David, a great warrior for Christ, had the same experience, crying and just having this a hard time connecting with God. Does that experience sound familiar? Maybe some of us right now are going through the very same thing. You're talking to God right now, and you're just not hearing from Him. Usually when David talks like this, he will write another song praising God and just for victory and triumph. You know, God being silent unto us. Sometimes we wonder why. He's a Father in heaven, right? Jesus on the cross had the same experience. So it's not because God doesn't love us. Even His Son, Jesus Christ, had a similar experience on the cross. He said, my God, why have thou forsaken me?" Not even Jesus could understand why He was not hearing from His Father, our Father. Why He was not hearing from God. This might be your experience today. A couple months ago, it was my experience as well. I think I spoke in another video about me being sick a couple months ago and how God would visit me every night. But there was one night, a Thursday night, I just cannot forget it because it feels like yesterday sometimes. And I went to bed and He just did not come, did not show up. And I waited and waited and He just did not show up. And I decided that I have to go to the hospital. I felt the need to go to the hospital, by the way. And so I put my clothes on. I was talking to God. I said, "God, should I go to the hospital? I, I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go in the ambulance. The hospitals are not safe. It's not the safest place to be." And I use the word safe because a lot of people go to the hospitals and don't come back alive. There's a lot of things that's going on at the hospitals right now. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. And so I went to my dad and I said, "Daddy, can you go to God and ask God if I should go to the hospital?" And he went to God and I said, "What did God say to you?" And he said, "God said nothing." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to call the ambulance because I really do need to go." And so on my way to the hospital, I was talking to God and it was a silence. Silence. And if you usually watch my video, I usually don't get the silent treatment from God. So that was pretty new to me and it was very frightening. I did not like that at all, to be honest. And so the ambulance brought me in and I got settled in and I was there and I was, after a while I started talking to God again. And I said, "God, you see the pain in my parents when they have to let me go in that ambulance. You see the grief it caused. Even my own father, the grief it caused, it was causing him to see that. Why did you let this happen?" God showed up in that hospital room. He showed up, and I was asking him because these were important questions I couldn't understand. Because I felt like I didn't need to be there. I said, God, why? Why did you let this happen? And you know what he said? He said, I wanted your father to know just a little of how I felt when I gave up my only son. And I said, God, well, tell me what is going to happen now? What are your thoughts and what is the next step? And I open my Bible because this is the way we usually communicate. I open my Bible, and the agreement is that when I open my Bible, we meet. And when I open my Bible and I look down, it said, there's fear and trembling in your voice. There's no peace. And you have a grievous sickness, but I'm gonna heal you. There's no medicine, there's no cure for your sickness, but I'm gonna heal you. And the doctors walked in. He said previously they took my blood works and so on, and they walked in and they said, well, we don't know what's wrong with you. But I was okay because God came. And even though I left still not knowing what is wrong with me, God came. And so I ended up in that hospital, not because of me per se, but because of someone else. God was silent unto me for a good reason. At the time, I felt forsaken. And so I didn't say anything to my dad right away. I said nothing to him because I wanted to see what would happen as a result of that lesson God was trying to teach him. Because when God teaches something, no matter who you are, you will learn that lesson. Because he teaches us in ways that we understand. And so a couple months later, I went to my dad and I said, Daddy, what is your relationship with God like since I went in that hospital? And he said, my relationship with God is much better. I see God in a new way. Can you imagine that? And then I told him the story of how God visited me and what God wanted him to learn from that. You know, my father's never grieved before. I think that's the first time I've ever seen him grieved. That's the first time, actually. And God, in his love and mercy, wanted to share an experience with him that God had. You see how loving God is? You see how kind and gracious he is? And sometimes that kindness and that graciousness, it appears as if he has forsaken us. Just like Jesus on the cross, just like David. It appears that way. But let's just remember, it is an appearance. It is not real. He will never forsake us and he will never leave us. Because you know what? When Christ was not hearing from God, Christ was not forsaken. No. Did God not know what was happening to Christ? Was Christ not in God's hand anymore? Was Christ in the hand of the devil now? Was Christ on his own? But Christ felt forsaken because he was not hearing from God. No, because Christ has overcome the cross. He said, because I overcame, you can overcome because I will come inside of you and overcome for you. So, whatever you're going through right now, if you're feeling forsaken, if you're feeling like God is not hearing you right now, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up because maybe, most likely, and honestly, I believe that not even most likely, but definitely it's for a good reason. It's for a good reason. And let us trust in that reason because he will never leave us and He will never forsake us. And Christ says, I will never leave you or forsake you, even to the end of the world, to the end of our life. He is right by our side, holding us and guiding us, even when we feel forsaken. Let's not allow our feelings to get the best of us. Let's hold on to Christ, knowing that He's good and faithful. Until next time, take care.